Asterisk Clarissa Johnson had always lived quietly on the edges of other people's lives. As a maid for the wealthy Whitaker family in suburban Connecticut, she scrubbed marble floors and polished crystal chandeliers while her own world existed in shadows and aging two-bedroom apartment, a daughter with asthma, and barely enough to stretch between paychecks. Her role was simple, invisible, obedient, replaceable, asterisk on that morning. She had arrived at the estate earlier than usual. The air smelled of fresh rain and birds chirped around the sprawling property as if untouched by hardship. Inside, silence. Mrs. Whitaker had left for her Pilates class. Mr. Whitaker was away on business. Only their 5-year-old son, Timothy, remained watched over by Clarissa while the nanny was reportedly running late. Asterisk. Clarissa was folding laundry in the upstairs corridor when she heard it, the sharp pop of glass, followed by a low, unholy groan. Smoke slipped out from the edges of a door at the far end of the hallway. Her heart slammed into her ribs. She dropped the sheets and ran. Asterisk. Timothy? She shouted. No answer. She burst into the boy's bedroom. Flames were already dancing along the velvet curtains, the plush carpet curling and blackening beneath them. The fire had spread faster than anything she had ever imagined. Her eyes stung and her lungs screamed with every breath, but she found the boy huddled under his bed, coughing and crying. Asterisk without thinking. Clarissa dropped to her knees, grabbed him and wrapped him in the quilt he slept with every night. She turned and ran not for the stairs, which were already engulfed, but toward the rear balcony. Her instincts screamed at her if she didn't act now, they'd both die. Asterisk the only way out was down a long jump from the second floor onto the hedges below. She didn't hesitate. Holding Timothy tightly against her chest, Clarissa leaped. Asterisk they landed hard. Her ankle twisted beneath her, pain roaring through her leg, but they were alive. Timothy clung to her neck, crying. Clarissa, barely able to move, tried to cradle him with shaking arms as black smoke poured from the windows above. Asterisk fire trucks screamed in the distance. Neighbors gathered. And then, finally, Mrs. Whitaker's Mercedes screeched into the driveway. Asterisk Clarissa sat on the curb as paramedics checked her over. Her hand was burned, her hair singed, and her ankle swelling badly. But she never let go of Timothy's hand until his mother came running, sobbing, and took him into her arms. Asterisk, she saved him. The nanny kept repeating to anyone who'd listen. Clarissa ran into the fire. Asterisk within minutes, Clarissa faded back into the background. Medics urged her to go to the hospital. She refused. She just wanted to go home to her daughter. Asterisk that evening, the Whitaker estate was all over the news. Maid saves child in mansion blaze. But Clarissa turned the TV off before her name was even mentioned. She wasn't interested in fame or praise. She was just thankful Timothy was safe. Asterisk the next morning, a black luxury sedan pulled up to her building. A sharply dressed man in a suit stepped out. He introduced himself as Charles Monroe, the family's private lawyer. He had been instructed to deliver a personal thank you from the WAI Tech. Asterisk Clarissa opened the envelope he handed her. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a handwritten note from Mrs. Whitaker. Thank you for saving my son's life. We are forever grateful. Asterisk Clarissa blinked, stunned. $10,000. More than she made in 6 months. She could finally replace her daughter's broken inhaler machine, fix the heating, maybe even move to a safer neighborhood. Asterisk, but before the lawyer left, he said something else. Something strange. Asterisk. Oh, and one more thing, he said, lowering his voice. You didn't hear anything in that room, did you? Asterisk Clarissa froze. Her mind spun. Asterisk, what do you mean? She asked carefully. Asterisk Charles smiled tightly. Just asking. Sometimes in emergencies, people hear or see things. Traumatic moments, imagination runs wild. He got into the car and left without another word. That night, Clarissa couldn't sleep. Not because of the burns or the pain, but because she remembered something. As she carried Timothy out of the fire, his tiny lips had moved, whispering something. At the time, she'd thought it was nonsense. But now, she closed her eyes and recalled it clearly. He said, "Daddy hurt Mommy." Those were the 2 words that had chilled her blood. hurt, mommy. She hadn't made sense of them until now, asterisk Clarissa knew what it meant. The fire hadn't started in the kitchen or from faulty wiring. It had begun in the master bedroom, Mrs. Whitaker's room, asterisk, and now, the question hung over her like smoke. Had someone tried to get rid of her? Asterisk the next day she was called to the Whitaker residence again. This time, Mrs. Whitaker greeted her at the door with hollow eyes and a forced smile. Clarissa noticed the faint bruise on the woman's wrist, hidden beneath her sleeve. She also noticed the way she flinched when Mr. Whitaker walked into the room. Asterisk Mr. Whitaker, perfect suit, calm demeanor, polished smile. But Clarissa saw the way his eyes darted, calculating, cold, asterisk. He shook her hand. Clarissa, you're a hero. Anything you need, just say the word. And then he leaned in, his voice barely audible. We trust you'll stay discreet for everyone's sake. Asterisk Clarissa didn't reply. She couldn't. The same man who might have started the fire was standing in front of her, pretending to be grateful. And she couldn't prove anything, just a child's whisper and a mother's bruise, asterisk over the next few weeks. Things returned to normal, almost, asterisk the Whitakers increased Clarissa's pay. They offered to pay her daughter's medical expenses. But the silence felt like a transaction, asterisk one night. As she walked home from work, Clarissa found a small envelope slipped under her apartment door, asterisk inside was a photo. A blurry image of her daughter walking home from school. Asterisk no note. No explanation. Her hands shook. She knew exactly what it meant. Stay silent, or everything she loved would be in danger. Asterisk that night, Clarissa sat on the floor of her kitchen, shaking. Her eyes were wide, staring at nothing. She thought about what Timothy had said, about the fire. About the way Mrs. Whitaker's eyes had silently pleaded with her, asterisk speak, and she'd lose everything. Stay silent, and she'd be complicit. Weeks passed. Clarissa kept working, smiling, nodding, accepting praise and polite smiles from neighbors who now called her a hero. But inside she was rotting. The guilt, the fear, it was poison. Asterisk until one evening, Timothy tugged on her arm as she tucked him into bed. Asterisk, you're still my angel, he whispered. Asterisk, she smiled weakly, brushing back his hair. You're my little Braveheart, she whispered. Back, asterisk, he paused. Mommy says angels speak the truth. Even when it's scary, asterisk Clarissa didn't sleep that night. By dawn, her decision was made. Asterisk she wrote everything down, every memory. Every word, every bruise she saw. She took it to a woman she met once, a family counselor and advocate who ran a shelter for abused women. Together they arranged to speak to the authorities. Asterisk it wasn't easy. The Whitakers tried everything, legal threats, money, even veiled warnings. But when Mrs. Whitaker was finally called in to speak, something cracked. The truth unraveled. And eventually, the investigation proved it all. Asterisk Mr. Whitaker was arrested for arson and domestic abuse. The fire had been intentional, an attempt to stage an accident. With his own wife as the target, the case made national headlines. Clarissa didn't give interviews. She didn't want fame. Asterisk all she wanted was for her daughter to sleep peacefully, knowing her mother didn't stay silent when it mattered most. Asterisk, and for the first time in her life, Clarissa didn't feel invisible anymore. She felt powerful and finally free.